It's the morning drive.
Good morning and welcome to the morning drive. I'm your host, Brooks Fiesinger of brooksfiesinger.com and MillionaireWho.com, where we help you stabilize your wallet, secure your future, and succeed in entrepreneurship and finance. Here with my co-host today, Hyundai Sonata. Let's get on the road. All right, so I've got some exciting news for those who know me. We welcomed a new family member to our household, and this week it was just certainly very exciting for us. I'm not going to get into too much detail publicly, but we have a wonderful new daughter, and we are quite overjoyed for it. And because of this exciting situation or opportunity, I'm going to talk to you today about making sure kids don't destroy your financial future, okay? So there's a few different ways we're going to look at this, but the gist of the idea is that your life changes a whole lot when you have kids, whether it's your first kid, your second kid, or whatnot. Your life completely changes. And when your life completely changes, it creates two opportunities. One opportunity that it creates is an opportunity to actually improve your life and make it better. The other, quote unquote, opportunity is to actually, frankly, derail your life and move you away from what you're hoping for. So, kids are one of those opportunities that makes that happen, where, you can either force yourself to get things in order, or you force yourself to go awry. And way too many people go awry. Way too many people let their kids be the reason or the excuse why they aren't seeing the levels of success that they wish they were. So, as I accidentally opened my sunroof, I apologize, especially since there's snow falling in on me. Yeah, really, I did not record this in the middle of winter. We have snow right now, which is never happened before. Anyway, so you've got a kid, or you're having a kid, and you want to make sure that not only do you love your new bundle of joy and raise them right and teach them right and take care of them, but you also want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're keeping yourself where you need to be. Now, this is very important because I've always stated, and I'll continue to state, that the most important thing you can do, the most important thing, is you can make sure you're not a burden on others, right? That's like the bare minimum. So you want to take care of your little bundle of joy. You want to be your kids' everything. You want to care for them and love them and be there for them and teach them and make sure that they're taken care of in life, right? You want to do your best to make their life as fantastic as possible. I'm pretty confident that's how any parent's going to look at it. That's certainly how I look at it. I want my kids to have everything. And so that includes, I want to make sure they're taught about money. I want to make sure they're taught about, how the world works. I want to make sure they're protected. I want to make sure they're provided for. Well, while this is something we all want to do, it doesn't do much good if you teach them really well, and then all of a sudden when they're 25, you say, hey, guess what? I didn't take care of myself and now I'm broke, and therefore, that money you're trying to save and you're trying to prepare for your future, well, instead, I need it, okay? I need you to give it to me. That's awful, but that happens so frequently, right? So the first thing you have to do is, just like when you're on an airplane, and you're on an airplane and they talk about those masks that you put over your face if you lose oxygen. And, they always say, put it on yourself first, then put it on your child. And while everyone wants to protect their child first, it makes a lot of sense why you do that. You do that because if you're passed out, then you can't help your kid, right? So make sure you don't get passed out, and then make sure your kid is taken care of, because you can do more, you can take care of them better when you're taken care of. So the important thing here is, right, if you want to take good care of your kids, you got to make sure you're taken care of. You got to make sure you're not the problem. And too many people are the problems for their kids. If you're taking care of your parents, that's your parents' problem, not you. And I don't mean taking care of them as in help them out, right? You should help out your family. I don't mean taking care of them as in, they're getting older and you need to help carry stuff around their house, or you need to go pick them up, take them to the doctor's appointments. That's not what I'm talking about, right? Those are all things that you should do. I'm talking about like, hey, they can't afford their rent and they can't afford food. That should not be your burden. That's their failings, right? Now, I don't like to judge other people too much, so let's not judge your parents. There's nothing they can do about it now. But make sure you're not doing that for your kids, right? You've got to make sure that when your kids are older, they're not having to take care of you financially, because that's money that's coming out of their pocket, so they can't take care of themselves. And if you love your kids and you want to take care of your kids, you want to make sure your kids can take care of themselves and they're not taking care of you, right? Again, I don't mean helping out. I go spend many weekends at my parents' house helping them out. I think you should help your family out. I think that's an important thing to do, right? And there's some ways you're going to have to help them out, but financially is not going to be the one that you're going to want to be doing, right? Because that's so costly. It's so expensive to help somebody out financially, right? If I have to spend $100,000 on my parents, then that's like $1 million I don't have at retirement or more, right? And how can I afford not to have that $1 million? I can't, because then I'm burdening my kids. It's like an endless cycle of everybody burdening their future kids, and so no one can ever escape. You don't want to do that to your kids, so therefore you've got to first take care of yourself. In the future, we'll talk about how to teach kids about money, how to raise them financially responsibly. But right now, we're talking about you, because your first responsibility is to make sure you don't get derailed. Now, I'm as guilty as anybody. The first time I had a kid, and I learned the hard way. So hopefully you can learn from me and you don't learn the way I did. I had a child, my first child we found out about my first child almost 7 years ago. And I had some really cool projects in the pipeline. And some of these projects, one of them included a electric motorcycle manufacturing company. So I had some new innovations that I invented, really cool stuff, a new transmission design, a new drivetrain design, and some new battery technologies. And they really significantly cut the cost big time on electric motorcycles while offering you tremendous performance. So I had a prototype built, and it was a pretty cool prototype. You know, you could get a range of about 200 miles, 300 miles, which could have been better with more batteries, but about 200, 300 mile range, top speed of easily hitting over 100 miles an hour, with a multi-speed transmission that was automatic, but not a traditional automatic. So it was my own design. It used the torque to adjust gears, which is really an interesting approach that actually was first used in the 1920s by a French car. But it really doesn't make sense from a gasoline car standpoint, but it makes a whole lot of sense from a electric car or electric vehicle, given that electric engines have ultimate torque, all the time. So you can actually use the torque request, or the need for torque to adjust your gearing. So I had some really cool technologies, had this prototype, life was great. I was recognized. I did a presentation on behalf of one of our senators. This is one of those big businesses I had going for me. I had a property lined up to manufacture these things. I had, the business plan, the SBA loans being addressed. I had, all this stuff ready. And I was like, this is going to be it. This is my $1 trillion idea, like this is like me being Elon Musk Tesla. And I was far enough along as that I actually had prototypes. I had the business plans. I actually had the property set up. I had been recognized by multiple government entities for these projects and for these innovations. And, once again, this is going to happen, right? And then all of a sudden, here comes along a little child. And I can't blame my child, right? That would be silly. And so I don't want to blame them. And there's a lot of other things that happen. But the difference is how you approach those things that happen. So normally in life, when something quote unquote happens, and all of a sudden, I get a little minor derailment, you force yourself to overcome it. But I found myself using my child as an excuse instead of a reason. So, it was an excuse because I'd say, oh, well, I don't have time to do that, or I'm so overwhelmed by this, or I can't believe this is going on, or instead of working on this project that's going to be super successful, why don't I go get another job? Because I need money to help raise my kid and to put into savings and all this kind of stuff. So, frankly, I shot myself in the foot. I totally shot myself in the foot. And yes, I'll use this story in other examples. So it's not just the fact that I had a child. Some other things came up. I had an issue with contract where the sellers were playing contract games with me. I had an issue with the SBA loan where once the property value changed, then I had to resubmit the loan, and that became a problem. So there was a bunch of things that happened, right? But I should have been able to make it work. I should have been able to overcome it. I'll also blame the situation when I started this project. Gas prices were shooting up, and everyone wanted, a future of electric cars. And here I am building, $3,000 electric motorcycles, and nobody else is doing that because my designs were so cheap. But once again, all of a sudden gas prices are tanking. People don't care for the electric vehicles anymore. These other things are happening, and I let myself walk away from because of my child. And once again, I'm not blaming my child. That's not what I'm doing. It's not my child's fault. The fault is me, but I used my child as an excuse to fail. I used her as an excuse, which is sad, right? It's depressing. I regret it. I feel bad for it. Hopefully someday if you're listening to it, you know that you weren't the problem. The problem was totally me. So I'm facing this situation where I literally use my child as an excuse to make bad decisions and to not force through and to make things happen, right? And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about making things happen, right? I'm all about making the impossible happen. That's pretty much my tagline in anything I do, because the impossible is so easy. The impossible is so possible. You can make the impossible happen. You just got to go out there and do it, right? So go make it happen. And I let my child be the reason why I didn't let it happen. Now, maybe for you, it's not hey, I'm starting this big, massive corporation and I'm going to let a child do it. Maybe for you, it's going out to lunch, right? We can rationalize so much because of a child. We can rationalize spending more money, right? We sit there and say, hey, I'm so crazy busy right now. Why don't I go buy my lunch in the cafeteria or go out to lunch instead of making it? Because making it such a hassle and I'm so tired. But that's a huge cost that you're adding to your budget, right? Your kid's already costing more, and now you're adding more burden on top of that. How are you going to cover that and still maintain your family spreads? Maybe you sit there and say, okay, well, we need to care for our child. Therefore, maybe somebody will stay at home, or will get rid of that second job. Maybe you'll stop doing your side hustle because you don't know how to find the time to spend on that side hustle in the evening. Maybe it's, once again, just spending on nice baby stuff because you want your baby to have nice stuff. Maybe it is, again, buying more expensive food that's prepackaged because you don't have the time to make it. Maybe it is, paying for somebody to come help out around the house. Maybe it's, paying for anything, right? Target is a great example of a company who identified how much more people change their behavior when they have a child. Therefore, they aggressively targeted parents with newborns, right? Or people who are about to have a child, because they knew if they would target somebody who was about to have a child, they're already making life changes with their child. And when you're making life changes with your child, then that is a perfect opportunity for you to change your behavior. And when you're changing your behavior, that's when you can get people to start new habits. So if you're starting a new habit, then why don't I want you to get your habit to start with me? Well, okay, that's great. I love that Target does this. I love to use this Target example as evidence of some of the cool, amazing stuff you can do with advanced analytics. But on the other side of the token is they know you're likely to change what you're doing, right? And because you're going to change what you're doing when you have a child, they can use that to create new habits, create new buying patterns, and new shopping behavior. So think about that for a minute. These corporations know that you're going to change your behavior when you have a child, and therefore they're actively working to make sure you change that behavior in a way that benefits them and gets you shopping with them, okay? What does that mean for you? It means, except that your behavior is going to change, that a whole bunch is going to be thrown up in the air and you're going to be susceptible to change. But there's two ways that you can make that change happen. One way you can make that change happen is to, use it as an excuse to spend more money. Use it as an excuse to go for the convenience route. Use it as an excuse to give up on that side hustle. Use it as an excuse to give up on your job or your career, or your second job, or your goals, or your dreams, or your activities. You can use it as an excuse not to put money in a savings. You can use it as an excuse not to invest. You can use it as an excuse not to put the time into what you need to put your time into. You can use it as an excuse, or you can use it as an opportunity. You can use it as an opportunity to both continue the good things you're doing and fix the great things that you're not doing. If you're going to change the way you shop, then why don't you change the way you shop and learn to shop a better way, right? Not paying a whole bunch for convenience. There's a time to pay for convenience. I won't tell you never pay for convenience, right? But it's got to be a tactical decision. You don't choose convenience because you're too lazy to think. Use this thing in here. The most valuable thing you have is right here in your head, in your brain. Your brain is amazing. Use it. I don't understand why so many people just don't use their brain. They just fall into I'm going to use this as an excuse to be lazy and idiot, right? Because I hate myself. It's pretty much how I think they think, right? You don't have to go rush out and buy a $50,000 car because you had a child. And for some reason, people think that's a logical, reasonable thing to do. Right? They're like, hey, I got a huge loan at 14% interest for a $50,000 SUV because my kid needs it. Seriously? Right? A $5,000 sedan is going to do just fine for your kid. If you want a $50,000 SUV, fine, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. But don't use your kid as an excuse to go do it. Have you ever noticed how highly optioned a lot of vans are? A lot of people buy highly optioned vans because they say, okay, I need a van for my kids. But because I'm driving a van, I need all these features because it's a van and I want to feel better about driving a van, right? I mean, seriously, we rationalize away our money in the silliest ways, right? And so the big thing is, don't make any rash decisions right when you have a kid. Don't decide, hey, I'm going to go buy a new car because I've got a kid. Now, maybe you've got a Ferrari two-seater and you're like, hey, I need a four-door. Okay, fine. Maybe you do want an SUV. Maybe you do need a new car. I'm not telling you don't, but think through it. Think through what you really need, right? I am 6'9". I drive a Hyundai Sonata. I can fit 3 kids in the back seat. So I can have 5 people without any problems in my Hyundai Sonata, okay? Do you know how much a Hyundai Sonata costs? They're about $9,500 with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, okay? So don't tell me you need to spend $50,000. That's ludicrous. That makes no sense. Again, maybe you want an SUV. My wife drives an SUV. I don't have anything opposing SUVs, but I have an opposition to you using your child as an excuse to go spend money you don't have to buy something you can't afford, right? That's where the opposition lies. Don't use your child as an excuse to do stupid things. Use your child as a reason to do smart things, right? So you're not going to go blow your money in a car. You're going to think through convenience purchases. Maybe you're checking out new stores because some stores have the baby stuff and other stores don't. That's great, right? Nothing wrong with that. But you've got to figure out what makes sense financially. One convenience thing we switched to was doing curbside pickup for your groceries. And while that seems like a potential expensive situation, we really ran the numbers, did the math, and found that we spend about the same. So I don't know if the prices are slightly higher, but we can be much more strategic about what we're buying. And so therefore, there's less surprises, there's less impulse buys, and you save a couple of hours, and that's huge for us. I know some other people who do the grocery deliveries. And once again, maybe that's a ripoff to you. Maybe it's not worth it to you, or maybe it is. It depends. If I can make $50 an hour on my side hustle, then saving 2 hours grocery shopping so I can sustain my side hustle makes a lot of sense. But if I'm gonna sit there and watch TV instead of going shopping, the $5 delivery fee might not make sense, right? You gotta figure it out with you, and there's no easy answers. The problem is, so many people want an easy answer. They want someone to say, oh, exactly what is the trick? The trick is you've gotta understand yourself, right? You gotta understand where you're spending money, what's important to you. It's not about figuring out what somebody else does. Yeah, we can learn from what other people do and use that as potential tips, as learning opportunities, but ultimately, we gotta figure things out for ourselves. So what makes sense in your situation? Again, if you're making $50 an hour on your side hustle and your issue is because you have a kid, you're running out of time, then go spend your stupid $5 for delivery fee and spend 2 extra hours a week on your side hustle. Make that $100. $100 minus $5 is $95. You make $95 more offloading that work. Again, if you're sitting there watching TV making nothing, then go to the darn grocery store. Even $5 is worth it, right? So the big thing is that besides the money side of it and where the money is going is also your time and what happens to your time when you have a child, right? So I had it in my head when I had my first child, like, okay, kids go to bed like 7:30. That means I've got like 7:30 to like 5 a.m. to work. Life is great. But the thing that I found out real quick is you are exhausted. I'm so exhausted by 7:30, I'm falling asleep. So maybe you can't put in, 150-hour weeks. Exaggeration a little bit there, right? So, but maybe you have to cut back time because babies take time. You can't leave your baby in a crib all day, right? But that doesn't mean you should stop doing the great things that you're doing. Okay? I'm gonna give you a great example. Listen to this podcast. I just had a child, right? I just had a child. Could I have used that excuse to say, hey, I'm gonna put this podcast on hold for a few weeks because I'm too busy? Yeah, I could have done that. That's what I would have done last time. But that's not what I'm gonna do this time because these things pass. Life gets a little easier after your newborn. And because things will get a little easier, you're going to regret dropping and making those stupid decisions when it seemed like an easy decision at the time. So think through what you're doing and think through it. If it's something you want to be doing or you're going to be doing in a year, don't put it on hold. Maybe you can do some stuff up front. And I did a big deal of that, right? So I did a whole bunch of work up front before my child was born, kind of front loading as much as I could because I knew I was going to have a couple of weeks of crazy hecticness. And then after, and then I tried to stay on top of stuff the best I could, but I made sure nothing got dropped. So, rearranging your schedule is fine. Rory Vaden is an author. Take the Stairs is a great book of his. I'll talk about it at some point, but that's a great book to read. He talks about seasons and the idea of having seasons. When you have a child, your child becomes a new season. It requires new time in certain ways. So, it's probably not the best time to start writing a new book. It's probably not the time to start a crazy new project. But you don't want to stop a project either. So front load as much as you can in advance, right? You've got like 9 months warning. Seriously, think about it. You got 9 months, that's a lot of time. Front load as much as you can. Front load so much that, you've worked double time for, 9 months so that you've got 18 months worth of work already done by the time the child shows up, right? So you literally already have 18 months done. You're already so front loaded. Then stay on top of the obligations that you've got to stay on top of. And then as things ease up a little bit with the season of a newborn, then you can get back to the projects in a little more strength. But it's a season, and it's the newborn season, and you can still spend tons of time with kids. I think I spend more time with my daughter, despite the fact that I have like a bunch of jobs and I run businesses and I'm busy all the time, right? I still spend more time with my daughter than a lot of people. And the time that I spend with my daughter is huge quality time, right? We're not sitting around watching TV. We're playing games. We're going doing fun stuff. We're going for walks. We're spending quality time together. You can do it, right? Just go in there knowing that your future is going to be lots of kid time, great family time, but you're not going to drop your other projects and your priorities. You can still make it happen, right? But you're going to go through a short season where it's hard. So front load, stay on top of it the best you can, and then continue rolling through. So once again, you're not going to see a break in this Millionaire Who, right? Because I recorded a few sessions in advance, and now I'm back recording, moving on, right? Child didn't get in the way of this. Don't let the child get in the way of your stuff. Don't use your child as an excuse. Use them as a reason. And the reason why you need a rocket, the reason you need to be successful, there's a reason, and your child's a good reason for it. Great reason why you need to take care of things, right? You don't want a minor health issue to derail your family. You don't want fears of retirement to derail your family. You don't want a car problem to derail your family, right? You got to be there for your kid. Be there for your kids to keep your finances in order. Make impossible stuff happen. You can make impossible stuff happen. And don't use that child as an excuse. Your child's not an excuse. So this time when I had a child, there were some books and videos that I was working on. We made sure those were done in advance. So I just hammered those things out, made sure those things were squared away in the weeks before the child was born, because that way, once again, when you've got all the marketing set up and you've got all the books set up and you've got them all sent out to the publishers and everything's good, it gets easier. So I did that hard work up front. Now I don't have to work on them right now because they're done. I actually closed a new property, a new building that I purchased, a new daycare and commercial property. And that property that we bought closed the day after my wife's due date, right? The child came a few days later, but once again, this is like right in prime, like hospital time. We're closing on a property, moving into a new property, and we bought an existing business, so we were running from day one. It wasn't like, hey, we're gonna put this on hold for a month. You know what? It worked out. Everything came together fine because I did a lot of preloading, a lot of advanced work, and we just made sure we had everything covered. So we made sure the quality was there. We made sure the services were offered. We made sure we were maintaining it. Now I'll tell you a little trick that I did. One of the tricks that I did was I decided not to change the name over right away, because once again, if something happened because I was out to the hospital, I didn't want it to impact the business. I'd rather it impact the old business that was shut down. But that's more fine tuning, right? That's fine tuning, because frankly, nothing went awry, and now we're switching the name over and putting the new signs up, and life is going to be great with our new location. But I closed the same time that my child was born. And the reason why this is wild is because I've heard many other successful people talk about how they closed their first real estate property when their child was born, or they, bought a new business when their child was born, or they launched something when their child was born, right? And these are people who are using their child as a reason why you have to. I could have said, hey, this is a busy time. I got a child coming up in 6 months, so I'm going to put this great opportunity on the back burner and worry about it in the future. You can't choose when opportunities show up, right? You got to be ready to take advantage of those opportunities when they do show up. You got to seize them. You got to seize those opportunities when the opportunities show up. You can't use your child as an excuse to fail. You can't use your child as an excuse to oversee and ignore opportunities. So I'm sitting on an opportunity. Guess what? I had to make it happen. I had to make it happen despite the fact that there's a child coming any day. I had to make it happen. Now, did I do some things smart? Yes. Some of the things I did smart were I made sure somebody else could sign for me, because I wasn't going to miss the hospital, right? But there's no reason I can't fill out some power of attorney form so somebody else can sign the closing for me, right? Does it mean I had to wire the money over a little early to the bank to make sure that for closing the money was there, even if I had to be in the hospital that day? Yes. I had that stuff taken care of in advance. I had the contracts read. I had somebody else that was able to sign for me. I had somebody else that was going to be there at closing for me. I had, once again, the money wired over in advance. These are all the kind of things that I was doing. These are the kind of things that, talk about preloading, right? I can't use the child as an excuse not to succeed, but yeah, I'm going to do things a little differently. I'm going to make sure somebody else can help me. I'm going to make sure this stuff's taken care of in advance when I can't do it because I won't have the time to do it. And I might be in the hospital that day and I'm not missing the birth of my child. But it's not this or that. It's not balance. Balance is silly. Do it all. Just figure out a way to do it all. Right? You can have everything you want. It doesn't mean you've got to balance things. It means you got to be smart about things, right? Be smart about things. Right? So you've got to be smart about things. And being smart about things means preloading. It means being intelligent about your projects. It means using your child as a reason to make impossible happen, not as an excuse not to. Because that's really the gist of this conversation. The gist of this conversation is your child's an amazing thing, an amazing gift. You want to be everything for that child. You don't want to be a burden for that child. You don't want to cause that child problems. You want to be a great role model. You want to make their lives better. You want to make their lives easier. And because of that, you got to make things happen. You got to make amazing things happen. You got to seize those opportunities. You got to be smart with your finances. You got to maintain your savings. You got to dump money in your emergency funds. You got to make sure you got that emergency fund there, right? You got a child to take care of. You got to have emergency money to take care of your child. You got to make smart purchasing decisions. You got to have secure income. You got to be building assets. You got to make sure your retirement's taken care of. You got to make sure your future health care is taken care of. You need these things. Your child needs these things. And because your child needs these things, you got to use that as a reason to make these things happen. You got to use these as a reason to make yourself successful. Again, there's a whole lot of people who were successful, started their first projects when their child was born, right in advance of the child. They used that as a wake-up call. They use it as a wake-up call to make the impossible happen, make their lives better. So use your child as a reason to do amazing things. Use your child as a wake-up call to fix the problems in your life. Use your child for good. Use your child and use your life to improve your child's life for good. Use them as a reason. Your child's a reason. And do not use your child as an excuse. It's too easy and too many. In fact, most parents I know use their child as an excuse for their failure. They use an excuse they can't do their jobs. They use it as an excuse they can't buy real estate. They use it as an excuse they can't grow their business. They use it as an excuse they can't go buy a business, create a project. But so many people use it as a reason, and so many people use it as a reason are successful. So be successful, right? Your child counts on you, all right? Now go out there and make the impossible happen.
It's the morning drive.